Hello everybody, welcome to Chess24. I'm Grandmaster Sopiko Guramishvili from Georgia. In this video series, we will see a lot of tactical motifs. I hope it will help you to improve your tactical vision and stay alert. Hopefully you're gonna learn a lot of things, so stay tuned for the next videos. See you soon, bye bye! Hello everyone, here I am again, Grandmaster Sopiko Guramishvili for Chess24. In these videos, we'll be looking at the examples of one of the most important tactical motifs, double attack. I hope you will enjoy the examples. I think it's quite fun and one of my favorite examples of double attack. So let's start. We have the game of Rati against Tartakova. Pretty complicated position. White is pawn up, but the king is pretty unsafe on king's side and nothing protects it. So if we give one move, just one move to black, black might mate the white king. So the move that was played in the game is just brilliant and beautiful, but before we go into that move, I'd like to show why queen g4 and knight g4 is bad, because we see that the knight on g4 is simply attacked twice and white can take it. As for queen g4, the line queen g4, knight g4 and king f5 is of course favorable for white, because white still has pawn and what black did is just exchange the pieces and we'll get the knight back, we'll get the material back. But queen g4 is not bad because of queen g4. The main reason why queen g4 is bad is simple king f7. It is pinned and it loses itself, the queen. So after queen g7, king g7, black just won the queen and has winning position. But what about knight g4? What do you think? Why knight g4 is bad? I hope you will find the solution. Of course, queen b6 attacks the rook and gives the check at the same time, so this is the pure example of double attack. And after king h2, queen d8, white is left in quite complicated position. So it was played in the game rook d6. You might think that it is pretty bad move because there is no defense for the rook on d6 and black queen can just take it, but we will see what was the idea behind rook d6. Of course, black has to take the rook on d6 because otherwise he loses the queen. And after queen g4, there is again king f7 or king h7, and white queen is pinned and is lost. But after king h7, white just takes queen g7, king g7 and knight f5. I think this is very beautiful combination and shows what is double attack, how to prepare it and make use of it. King has to go to g6 and knight d6. White is just winning because he is piece up and has winning position. I hope you enjoyed this example because I really love it and really think it's most beautiful example of double attack. Let's go to another game, and this game was Pierce against Burn. We again have quite complicated position. Black is pawn up, but the f2 pawn is quite weak and might be lost very soon. That is why Black uses a great motif, double attack, and it is not direct way to use this motif, but after knight f5, logical move, the king has to go to d3 to protect the c3 knight, but Black anyway takes rook c3 with the idea that king c3 after knight e3. We see that the rook has no useful square to go because, for example, if rook moves to a1 or c1 after pawn promote to queen, f1 queen, rook f1 and knight f1, Black has completely winning position. But what happens if White just takes on f2? Then after knight d1, a fork and double attack, Black just wins the rook back and is left with an extra piece. Let's see another great example of the game Taimanov against Zarabsky. And it is very difficult to imagine here that something will happen, any kind of double attack or any kind of tactic in this position. It seems that Black pieces are protecting the pawns very well, and it is very difficult for White to break through. Anyway, White pieces attack the d6 pawn pretty well. And can he take it right away? Of course he can. What can be the idea of bishop d6 and rook d6? Of course it's not rook d6, queen c5 to pin the rook, because after rook d1 check, White loses the queen just, or right away queen c5, because Black simply can just protect the rook on d6, or just take the rook on d3, queen e7 and rook d1. We see that White has an extra queen, but into rooks and a piece, which leaves Black in completely winning position. So, rook d6 and knight f5. Again a piece sacrifice. What can be the idea? Knight f5, g takes f5, the only move, otherwise the rook on d6 is lost. And I hope you can see what was the idea of knight f5. Of course, the clearance of g3 square and double attack with rook d6 and queen g3. Now there is no defense for the rook on d6. Black has to move king h8 or king f7, and after queen d6 and rook d6, we can see that White wins back the one of the pieces on c6 or b6 and is left with winning position. Let's take a look on my favorite example of the game of Drazen versus Tsagan, and we see that white is attacking, but this bishop on g6 is protecting everything, somehow. Or is it really protecting? The bishop on c4 is very strong because it pins the f7 pawn. So it gives white an idea to calculate the line, to make sacrifices and win the brilliant game. So how white can use it? Queen g6. It is simply brilliant queen sacrifice, and the idea behind it is that black of course cannot take with f pawn, so he's forced to take with h pawn. And now we see that the rook controls the h file, so after again sacrifice bishop f7, black king cannot go anywhere, so he is forced to take the bishop on f7. And now I hope you can calculate the line and see where the double attack comes. Hope you saw it. Of course, rook h8, distraction also over the king, and after rook h8, knight f7, double attack, and after king h7, knight d6, white has an extra pawn and winning position. The game continued in a very interesting way, but I think that after rook d8 and rook e6, white had no problems to win the game, and we don't need any longer to see this example. I hope you enjoyed the examples and hope to see you in next video. Thank you for watching. Hey guys, here I am, challenged by French star Monsieur Maxime. Huge thanks to you. And here's my ice bucket challenge, and I'd like to nominate Miss Strategy, Rodolphson, good luck, Young Gustafsson, Chess24 Pride, Mamita, Anna Matnadze, and of course Chess24 Spanish star, Paco Vallejo. So, gotta do what I gotta do. Now, let's get ready. And...
Hey guys, this is Anna Rudolph, also known as Miss Strategy, and with this clip I would like to convince you that endgames can be really cool. I just can't stand the expression on people's faces when they are like, oof, endgames. What's wrong with endgames? Why do people fear entering endgames? Why are they like, once the queens are off the board, they lose interest in the game? With all due respect to my colleague Miss Tactics, I think that endgames are fascinating. They can be so instructive, so wonderful, and once you understand them, you can really enjoy playing endgames. I would like to show you an example. Once I manage to get the board on the screen, let's hope I will manage. This is the position we have.